Hello, Research Matters. I think we are having a little bit of technical difficulties. We will be with you in just a moment. Oh, looks like everything may be working now. Um, okay. Okay, great, good. Hello, welcome. Sorry about that. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Welcome to the Office of Research Regulatory Affairs, Research Matters. I am Scott Myers, the Clinical Research Educator for UT Southwestern's Office of Research Regulatory Affairs, and I'll be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to quickly go over some housekeeping items. If you have any questions for our presenters during today's session, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentations. This session is being recorded, and you can watch it again right after it's finished by clicking on the Microsoft Teams live link in the email invitation. We'll also send you the slides via email. You can find the links to future meetings, slides, handouts, and past recordings on the HRPP's Research Matters website under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one email, but should have, please send an email to hrpp.western.edu to request a certificate. Lastly, we want to hear from you. We use the information you provide to plan for future topics for these sessions. It's also an opportunity for you to let us know how our speakers did and how our office is doing. So please take a few minutes to complete the survey or to provide your feedback. You may access the survey using your phone, via the QR code, or your computer by selecting the link. So I will also drop a link to the survey Q&A. One moment, I think we are still having difficulties. Hopefully you all can see that now. Okay, I sincerely hope that everybody that people can see the screen here. I will just keep talking, and we'll hopefully everything is working out. If you're having problems, you can also put that in the Q&A session, the Q&A text box as well, just so we know. Okay, but moving forward, let me just go over our agenda for today. First, Mayad Bird, our IRB director, will provide updates from the Human Research Protection Program. Then Jonathan Hunter, the Director of COI and Export Control, and Aisha Garner, also from our COI office, will discuss financial interests and outside activities, explaining when these must be disclosed to UT Southwestern's COI office, and emphasizing the importance of disclosure for maintaining research integrity and complying with the federal regulations and institutional policies. After their presentation, you will hear from Daryl Campbell-Pierre from our Research Support Office, specifically our Quality Assurance and Monitoring team, who will present to you on 8 frequent findings identified by our Quality Assurance and Monitoring team during the last quarter. Daryl will also discuss practical solutions to help study teams address these issues and stay compliant with good clinical practice standards. As always, if time permits, we will conclude with an open Q&A session. Okay, Mayad, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be able to provide you with some HRPP updates. Most of them have to deal with ethos, but I do have some other updates that I'd like to share today. So with regard to ethos, the much anticipated My Inbox is now available. To navigate to My Inbox, you can click on the dashboard, and then you have to give it a little bit of time, but it'll load your inbox. Your inbox are going to be things that you're going to see in your queue. Maybe there's an item that's been returned to you that requires clarifications or some additional work. So this is going to be where you can identify those items that need some attention from you. So next we have the My Reviews box or the My Reviews tab. So with regard to ancillary review, so if you are someone at our institution that provides an ancillary review, and those would be performance sites, it could be PRMC, it could be other institutional committees, it can be all of those entities. So this is going to be your landing place to identify all of the items that are going to be in your queue that needs some level of ancillary review. This is just kind of a demonstration. I logged in as someone else, but it's really kind of just demonstrating again that this is the My Reviews tab. And in here, you'll see all of the ancillary reviews that are attached to this particular study. And then if I need to issue an ancillary review approval, I would click the link and then submit ancillary review. But again, this is kind of your landing place or a place that you can actually use as your when you plan out your work for the day. Also, we have this for new studies and for modifications. Usually the modifications may require some level of ancillary review, whether it's like related to PRMC or it could be SURE. We're currently working on our SPA ancillary review process right now, so that hasn't been finalized. But again, this is where those ancillary reviewers who normally issue approvals on behalf of the ancillary committee will go to see the items that need some attention. This has also been updated for CRU or Clinical Research Unit reviewers. So they now on that same page have my CRU reviewers. So if you are someone that's a department chair, division chief, or normally have the ability maybe as a performance site to issue the CRU approval for a new submission or a change of PI, you can actually identify those studies kind of in this queue. Another update, so this is more of a notification to our affiliates who tune into Research Matters. So reportable event notifications should now be sent to you whenever we are moving a reportable event to the next level of review. For example, like subcommittee review, IRB review, or designated member review. And then you should also receive a notification if there are any type of actions required, which essentially means that the IRB has approved that reportable event with stipulations. Another update that was made to Ethos, this is actually in a patch fresh yesterday. Anytime you have a study that has invalid characters such as like trademarks or symbols, you're going to receive a validation error on the title. And you will, you're going to need to remove that special character. And this all goes back to EPIC. So EPIC doesn't recognize special characters. And again, this the source of truth for the study title is Ethos that gets in turn directly input into Velos, and then from Velos it goes into EPIC. So our source of truth is going to have to be the place where we limit those special characters. So that's an update that was made. And the next one is just to kind of talk a little bit more about the modification holds. I think there's kind of a lot of confusion about modification holds, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about this. This is not a new process. This is something that we actually implemented. I want to say it's been in practice for almost about 2 years now. So modification holds are when the IRB holds a submission or holds a modification because there may be other institutional components that are required that need to be in place before we activate or allow the release of informed consent documents and protocols. Typically, we have mod holds in place for coverage analysis. So a lot of when we receive a new study in the IRB office, usually you are already working with SPA, working with the contract and coverage analysis. And then with new studies, there's kind of like this approval pending other approvals state that a study goes in while we wait to work out the coverage analysis details, contracts, performance site approvals, committee approvals, all of those things. Well, for modifications, we don't have the same thing. And a lot of times with regard to modifications, the IRB is the source of the new information. SPA, sometimes folks don't go to SPA first. They come to the IRB because a protocol was received and there's updates that need to be implemented in a study. So the IRB is the gatekeeper, so to speak, for that modification. So we have worked out a process with SPA that allows us to hold the modification documents, such as your informed consent document, your protocol, or anything that you would need to implement per that modification. We hold that modification to allow for those other pieces to happen, such as coverage analysis review. This is incredibly important for our institution, and it kind of blends over into the area of Medicare, Medicaid. And so essentially, if you don't have the appropriate schedule of events, procedures built out into Velos and into Epic, you may come across a billing error, and that puts the institution at risk of receiving fines from Medicare for double billing practices. So again, it's a necessary evil to have, but just to kind of let you all know right now that our process is once the IRB approves a modification and it is noted that the study visits, procedures, performance sites have changed, we're going to implement or constitute a mod hold on that submission. And again, this is to allow for SPA to take a look at the submission. They receive a notification from Ethos indicating that this is an item that's been identified or flagged as having a change to the schedule of events. And then we will review as the IRB the modification. And if the item is approved with stipulations, obviously we want you to respond to the stipulations. And then that study will sit in a post-review state. We won't do a final letter. We won't release any of the approved documents. If the IRB approves it as written, or if it's approved by a designated member, again, it's going to stay in that post-review state while we wait to hear from SPA that your study doesn't require a coverage analysis change, or that the coverage analysis change has been submitted and has been cleared. So again, we're working with our counterparts on this to make sure that as an institution, we remain compliant. Currently, that's kind of what our process is. If your submission to the IRB, your modification was submitted and you did not correctly mark that there were changes in procedure, study visit, or performance sites, the IRB analysts are looking for that information and will change that response to a yes, and then send a notification to SPA. Again, we're trying to close these loops so that we limit these issues that come up where there might be errors in our billing processes. So again, this is kind of what you'll see. This is a modification that's stayed in post-review state. Now, you may not see all of these history comments. It's something that we have internally, but when you see a modification in the post-review state, like kind of hanging out here for a while, it typically means that this was a modification that was flagged that probably needs a coverage analysis change. So we really want you as the research community to look at those modifications and early on submit those coverage analysis mods when you know that there are changes in procedures, schedule of events, or performance sites. We want you to early on submit those changes. Because again, we will hold the submission again to allow for that work to happen on the other end. And then kind of once we receive clearance from SPA, then we'll release those documents. But you can help this process. You can help speed it up. Again, if you proactively, are submitting those coverage analysis mods. So wanted to share that detail with you. The next thing that we have up, we used to publish our metrics on our website. But this for a period of time as we transitioned to Ethos was not available. And it's taken a little while to kind of get the data in a format that we can use. And we actually have included a team member, a data analyst in our office who does wonderful work and has been instrumental in creating these reports again. So I want to share these reports here, just kind of on our slides, just kind of to show you what we've been kind of working on in the last 6 months, but also to alert you and let you know that we do plan to show and display these metrics on our website, but we are working with the accessibility rules to find the best way to disseminate this information on our website, whether we do a Power BI report, and make it interactive, or if we're able to share the information in another format that meets the website accessibility requirements. So these are the total submissions that the IRB has received in the last 6 months. So we've been very busy. Busy working on submissions, still working through our ethos bugs and workarounds and, educating and training our staff. So we've been very, very busy in our office. These are the number of new study submissions. These are by review type. So we've seen a lot of exempt submissions, but that's kind of just to share the number. This is just a pie diagram to kind of show the breakdown in percentages and what our office receives in terms of new submissions. And then finally, this doesn't look like our previous version that had the table at the bottom, but it does show the trends with our turnaround time, our median turnaround times within the last 6 months for each type of new study review. So it looks like we are, again, working really, really hard. The analysts are working really, really hard and trying to get those turnaround times down really low. We understand that we've got some improvements to make with regard to reliance. We've got some, I think those full board turnaround times are also pretty good as well. But again, this is just to show transparency in where we've been and where we're going. The analysts have done an amazing and outstanding job with keeping their turnaround times low. And I would also attribute that to the research community being responsive and getting items back to us again, because this helps us all just get these things off of our cart and get you back to business with implementation of whatever it is that you're working on. So I appreciate, again, the analysts, the designated members, are the people that work with our full board submissions, and as well as you, the research community. And then last but not least, I just want to highlight that we have now entered our period of AHRP reaccreditation. So we will be working to prepare for our step 1 submission. So with that in mind, that means that we've got to be looking at our institutional practices from an HRPP standpoint. And as you recall, the HRPP is not just the IRB office. It's actually all of us. It's the IRB office. It's the QAM team, it's the researchers, it's the investigators, it's our conflict of interest office, our SPA office, it is our affiliates, it is the entire HRPP. So when we talk about AHRP and we say HRPP, we're really referring to those entities across the research enterprise. So just be on the lookout for meetings, be on the lookout for rapid policy changes, as we prepare for our reaccreditation application to be submitted in June of 2026. Our step 2, which is our site visit, will occur approximately in June of 2027, and hopefully we'll have full reaccreditation in the fall of 2027. But again, just announcing that, just be on the lookout. We're going to be formalizing practices, changing our policies, and sharing that information with the research community, either through listserv messages or by special sessions or research matters. That is all that I have to present today, and I will turn things over to, I can't remember who I'm supposed to be turning things over to.
We'll be going over to Jonathan and Aisha.
Jonathan and Aisha, thank you all.
Thanks, man. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Everybody see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right, Aisha, are you able to see it?
No, but that's fine. I have my slides up.
Okay, great.
So good afternoon. My name is Aisha, and I'm a Senior Regulatory Associate in the Conflict of Interest Office within the Office of Research Regulatory Affairs. And today, myself and Jonathan Hunter, the Director of the COI Office, will present on financial interests and outside activities, what and when to disclose to the UT Southwestern COI Office. Next slide. I can't. Okay. Okay, So today's speakers is myself and Jonathan, as I stated earlier.
Next.
Okay. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the Q&A for this meeting, and Jonathan or I will answer them at the end of the presentation if time permits. Financial interest versus outside activity. What is a financial interest? A financial interest is anything of monetary value. Examples of financial interest are consulting payments, equity in a company, investments in host or sponsored paid travel. What is an outside activity? An outside activity is anything you do outside of your institutional responsibilities. Certain outside activities are pre-approved and do not require disclosing. Some examples are coaching your daughter's soccer team or serving as a committee member for a scholarly association or society. Some outside activities require both disclosing and your supervisor's approval. These include serving on the board of directors for a company, consulting for a drug company, or a part-time or PRN job. When to disclose financial interests. Financial interest must be disclosed within 30 days of being hired at UT Southwestern during UT Southwestern's annual disclosure period, which is January through March 1st each year. Also, within 30 days after obtaining a new interest or receiving additional compensation for an existing interest.
Okay, here for important information, it's really important to think about this. So here in our policies, we have this concept of a covered individual. And all covered individuals are required to disclose their financial interests. And again, most UT Southwestern personnel involved in research are covered. There are occasions where somebody is not technically covered under the definition, but we might still ask them to disclose. To help with this 30-day requirement, we're going to recruit you all to help here. And so we encourage you to use your regular team meetings to talk with each other, and specifically with your PIs and your other faculty members, to disclose on a regular basis. Again, there's the requirement for annual disclosure, but there's also the requirement for disclosure within 30 days. And this is the thing that our institution currently has a challenge with, is getting those disclosures updated on a regular basis to meet that 30-day requirement. Also, there's another time when you can do this, and you can do this at the submission of your IRB or IACUC submissions, right? So there's a question in the IRB submission form that asks about financial interest, and this is a great time to just remind everybody that they need to update their disclosures.
When to submit outside activities. Outside activities must be submitted for review and approval prior to engaging in those activities. You should submit for review as soon as possible. Please do not wait until the last minute. Jonathan, do you want to add anything additional to this slide?
Sure thing. So Aisha's being very nice when she asks please, but there is a thing here that's really important, and that is that the process involves multiple steps. And the last step, of course, is getting your supervisor to approve your outside activity. And sometimes that can take a while because we know supervisors are really busy. And so we can move mountains when we can, but there are only so many of them that we can move. And so when it comes to an outside activity, we just need you to submit as soon as you have information about that. And to that point, here are some important pieces of information. So we talked about financial interests being for covered individuals to disclose, but when it comes to outside activities, all Southwestern personnel are required to submit outside activities for review. And that includes even those individuals who are not in research, for example, for like a part-time second job. As we've talked about many times, but again, just a reminder, an outside activity often can result in a financial interest. Not always, but often. And in those cases, a financial interest disclosure needs to be submitted as well, right? And right now, these are baked into the same form, so this should be pretty easy. But again, you might need to update that financial interest disclosure later after additional payment is received for that activity. One of the reasons why we ask you to submit as soon as possible, especially as it relates to international activities, is because international activities require some in-depth analysis. And in particular, as we talked about before, we have some export control requirements, we have some research security requirements, and these just take a while to get through the process. So if you're wanting to go to a foreign country for a conference tomorrow, that will be really difficult for us to approve that, especially if it's one of those countries of concern that we've been talking about before. So again, any international activity especially, but overall outside activities need to be submitted as soon as possible so we can work those through the process. Certain activities require an agreement. So like consulting, for example, that agreement needs to outline what services you or the investigator or the faculty member are providing. And it needs to talk in certain ways about what your contributions look like and what that remuneration looks like, that compensation, so that we can have an understanding of that. And for those agreements, we do require some uniform terms and conditions to be attached. And there's a paragraph that goes inside the agreement you have with that company that points to the uniform terms and conditions. And again, those are important because they protect you as an individual. They also protect the institution.
How to submit. You will submit in the COI info portal. If accessing the COI info portal from a remote location, you must be behind the firewall, the UT Southwestern firewall. Once you've logged into the system, you will either see a link to complete your COI training, and afterwards you'll be able to complete the COI statement of financial interest. For non-covered individuals, you will see a link to submit outside activity requests form.
Okay, so why does this matter? This matters for a few different reasons, and we could spend a lot of time on these as I think they're really interesting, but just as highlights. So there's an ethical reason why we do all this. And the first ethical reason here is that we want to promote transparency and avoid bias. When we have financial interests in the mix with research, sometimes that can create bias or even the appearance of bias. And so we need to know about these things so that from an ethical standpoint, we can be doing the right thing. And that includes, of course, providing information sometimes in the consent form to protect our research subjects. There are also federal requirements. So most of the requirements that we deal with are from PHS sponsor agencies. So the NIH, of course, being our largest one. There are many COI requirements that apply for our research, our federally supported research, and we want to make sure we meet those requirements. Not meeting those requirements requires a lot of downstream extra work to do that is pretty painful, not only for our office, but also for each of you and the person who disclosed late, et cetera. So meeting those requirements is really important. There are also state requirements. So some institutions here in the state of Texas, they're private institutions. They don't have to worry about all of the extra state requirements that we do. We as a state institution have additional system requirements, and those apply more broadly than just the federal requirements. And so because of all these federal and state requirements, it's just really important that we stay on top of these things. And as I say here below, it is much easier, simpler, better, ethically more appropriate for us to comply with disclosure and review requirements on the front end rather than to address noncompliance later. Again, addressing that noncompliance, it's not fun for anybody, so it's just better to get these things knocked out before we start our research.
Resources. So we provided policies that correlate with the information we discussed today. So financial interest policies is ETH 104 and RES 404. And then the outside activity policy is EMP 158. Also, the link that is provided has information on the UT Southwestern inclusion paragraph and UT Southwestern uniform terms and conditions that Jonathan mentioned earlier. And then please contact us at the Conflict of Interest Office at UT Southwestern EDU if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Scott, are there any questions that we need to address right now?
Nothing in the Q&A right now, but again, everybody, you can always type them in the Q&A, and hopefully we will have time at the end and we can address those. Or they can also be addressed just via writing as we go through the presentations. So next up, we have Daryl Campbell-Pierre from our Quality Assurance and Monitoring team. Take it away, Daryl.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daryl Campbell-Pierre, a regulatory monitoring analyst with the Quality Assurance Monitoring team here at UT Southwestern. And today I will be discussing common not-for-cause findings and solutions. Starting off by introducing not-for-cause monitoring visits. It involves a full documentation review to ensure studies are compliant with institutional policies, state and federal regulations, and uphold best practices. During not-for-cause monitoring visits, we will ensure that study teams' records are being maintained in an accurate, complete, and current manner, as well as study teams reporting to the sponsor, FDA, or IRB in a timely manner. We will review documentation to ensure that all study team staffs have been trained appropriately and study tasks have been delegated responsibly by the primary investigator. Last but not least, we will ensure that any changes to the protocol is approved by the IRB and reported to the sponsor, FDA, or the IRB. According to our metrics from the last quarter, there are 8 common not-for-cause findings that I will be discussing with you all today. Starting off with expired or missing CVs, missing or expired GCP and HSP certifications, completion of all study procedures to adhere to the study protocol, missing training documentation, adhering to the ALCOA principles with case report forms, completing conflict of interest documentation, maintaining approval letters in the regulatory binder, and appropriate delegation log oversight by the primary investigator and study teams. Now we'll break down these common findings and discuss some solutions. First, starting off with expired and missing CVs. We want to make sure that CVs are updated every 2 years for each study personnel. We want to ensure that CVs include a signature and date to verify that it is current and that each study personnel has the proper education and training to perform the study responsibilities adhering to the GCP guidelines. One solution is creating an Excel spreadsheet that has these expiring dates that could be very helpful in maintaining when CVs are going to be expired. The next common finding is missing or expired GCP and HSP certifications. We want to make sure that GCP and HSP certifications for each study personnel is current. That means that these certifications need to be updated every 3 years, and also creating an Excel spreadsheet that has the expiration dates of these certifications is a great way to maintain oversight. The next common finding is completion of all study procedures to adhere to the study protocol. We want to make sure that study team must ensure that all study procedures are complete according to the protocol. So creating a checklist that has all the study procedures listed can be very resourceful to make sure that you are completing each procedure during your study activities. The next common finding is missing training documentation. It is important to ensure that each time a new version of the protocol is created, training documentation for all study personnel is required. So you want to be sure that we're documenting when training is occurring for each study personnel by retrieving a date and signature when that study personnel was trained on the new protocol version. And you want to make sure that we are maintaining this training documentation in your regulatory binders. The next common finding is adhering to ALCOA principles with your case report forms. You want to ensure that your case report forms are fully completed and aligns with ALCOA principles. So you want to make sure that it's truable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate, and so that we can maintain data integrity and follow GCP guidelines. The next common finding is completing your conflict of interest documentation. We just had a beautiful presentation, and we want to ensure that all study personnel completes their conflict of interest documentation. And you can reach out to the conflict of interest office, and they'll be sure to answer all your questions that you need to assist in order to make sure this documentation is compliant for all your study personnels. The next common finding is documenting protocol deviations and adverse events. When a protocol deviation or adverse event occurs during study activity, you want to ensure that you document this in your PD, your protocol deviation logs and adverse logs as it happens during your study activities. It's important that the PI assesses every protocol deviation and adverse event that occurs to see if it meets that reporting criteria and then if it needs to be escalated to the IRB. The last common finding is delegation log oversight. It is important to regularly review the DOA log to make sure that it is up to date and all study personnel are upholding their responsibilities they have been delegated by the primary investigator. If there is any personnel changes, it is important to make sure that this is documented on the DOA log. So the PI must maintain this oversight by adding start and stop dates when study personnel are added to the study or taken off to the study, and making sure that they have a signature by that primary investigator. In conclusion, being aware of these 8 common findings can assist addressing the findings as well as implementing strategies that we discussed today to make sure that we are maintaining oversight over all these common findings that we're finding during our not-for-cause visits. The QAM team has resources to help the study team be able to prepare for not-for-cause monitoring visits and also be able to do some self-evaluation of their own study documentation by providing checklists that are greater than minimal risk and minimal risk checklists. If you want to be able to find these resources, you can reach out to a QAM team member. We'll be happy to give you these resources. So therefore, you can do some self-evaluation and also help to prepare for not-for-causes if you are selected for one. We also want to let you know that study teams can request not-for-cause monitoring visits by reaching out to a QAM team member. We'll be sure to help you, give you the resources, so therefore we can get this monitoring visit scheduled for you so that we can take a deeper look at your studies and make sure that you're compliant with GCP guidelines. And if you have any questions throughout the week, we also want to let you know that you can reach out to us at any time, but also you can join the IRB office hours every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, everyone. We have concluded the presentations and we do have time, so we're going to move into our Q&A session. I invite you to submit any questions or comments that you may have at this time. I'm going to pause for a few seconds to allow you time to type up any questions.
Hey, Scott, it looks like there is one question, and this one might be for conflict of interest. Please confirm if employees need to report conflict of interest if employee at an external part-time job.
I can take that one. So an external part-time job. So right now, and again, to draw distinctions, so there's financial interest in an outside activity. So that outside activity of a part-time job would need to be submitted and approved by your supervisor. Whether or not that results in a financial interest that also needs to be disclosed kind of depends on what the nature of that job is. So we can certainly coach you through that as you do that submission for the outside activity.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, while we wait for more questions to be typed up, I'm just going to remind you all of the survey. If you could just spend a few minutes to complete the questions, we will use the information to improve this content and our future presentations. We will also be able to see what areas we need to work on in the office and what areas we are excelling in. We did receive a comment that Florence is a great tool to track expiring documents like GCP, HSP, and CVs. Thank you for that. We will wait just another minute. Please, if you have any questions, don't be shy. Please feel free to type them in the Q&A, and we do have some time. So, yeah, please go ahead and send your questions along. Okay, we do have one question here. It is there an SOP somewhere that states the 2-year expiry date for CVs? So Daryl, I think that's for you or your team. Where does that rule come from, and where can they find that?
I can take that question, Scott. As of right now, whoever this person is, if they can just reach out to us via email, we can share that resource with them.
Okay. And Manali, is there a, I know we've given them at the beginning, there's the HRPP mailbox, but is there a specific QAM email that they should use, or just email one of you?
Sure, we do have a shared inbox. It is hrppmonitoring@utsouthwestern.edu, and I can type that up in our Q&A as well, so they can reach out to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Manali. Okay, we have another question. It is in Ethos, when this person adds someone to manage guest list, they aren't able to view a specific mod. So this person would then have to add them to each mod's guest list. Is that correct? Mayad, maybe that's a question for you. Do they have to do it for each mod or just the study guest list?
Let me actually get Kimberly to help me with this. Hang on one second. Kimberly, are you still on? Okay, so this, did you hear the question? So in Ethos, when I add someone to manage guest list, they're not able to view a specific mod. So then I have to add them to each mod's guest list. Is that correct?
Oh,
Okay.
I see. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Maybe she's not able to speak, but hope maybe she can send us something. Or if not, I'll just
Yeah, if she
direct you to.
Yeah, I was gonna
to
say if
reach
she
out.
can
Yeah.
just and if she can put it in our chat, then I'll voice it.
Okay, great.
We'll answer that question offline. How about that? So that way we don't take up everyone's time today, but we'll definitely provide an answer to that.
Yes, and again, I apologize to everyone here. I don't know what you all could see as the viewers, but we had a few technical difficulties, and so it's been a little touch and go for the presenters here. So apologize for that. Okay, there is another question here. This is also regarding Ethos. Does the IRB prefer, after initial RE has been submitted and IRB is communicating to CRCs through Ethos, that the IR be edited within the RE if applicable, or answered through the action response page? Apparently you can add a comment and attach additional comments. We have found when we submit the quote action response, it will make the RE uneditable. This person wants to make sure the clarity of the best steps to limit their future back and forth for answering the IRB office on additional feedback when using the action required option.
I am trying to recall this. I'm assuming that this is during the pre-review. That when we receive a reportable event, I think that the analysts are working with research communities a number of ways. They're either using the IM Teams IM for quick and easy items. They may also return the reportable event to you and ask that you revise the submission and then submit your response there. If this is an item that was reviewed by the IRB, and there were actions that were required, or essentially it's approved with stipulations, you're going to need to do the respond using the action response or submit action, and make any updates as necessary and attach any like supplemental documents like training records, training materials. You're going to have to use that action response button or activity and submit your supporting documents there. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mayed. Another question here, this would be for Daryl and Manali's team. What is the policy for training documentation of new non-protocol documents, such as the lab manual? Okay.
I can take that one. So I responded to the Q&A, but I agree there's a comment in there that if it's a document that does not require IRB submission, you can defer to the sponsor's requirements, the industry sponsor, whether they need retraining or not. But generally, if there has been any changes in the study procedures or the way or the process that is in the current protocol, then a retraining is recommended. However, as I said, like, you can, at the end, you can refer to the sponsor's discretion of whether a training is required or not.
Okay, thank you, Manali. And we have another question about documentation, or at least preparing for a not-for-cause audit. Is there some sort of document that shows how to share Florence with a monitor for a monitoring visit?
I don't think we have one, but that's a great suggestion. We can prepare something like that and provide it before the monitoring visit so the study teams can be ready on how to, a kind of tip sheet on how to share documents for the visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Manali. Just give a few more seconds in case there's any last minute questions. Okay, I don't see any new questions, so I want to thank all our presenters and thank you all for attending today's session. Our next Research Matters session is scheduled for September 16th. So we'll see you all on September 16th, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.